corn salad that we're going to do today, I cheated a little bit. I'll go ahead and tell you. Corn is just now coming in. It's really good. I brought some up here to show you that we do have fresh corn. I use frozen corn though tonight for speed and for my sanity's sake of trying to fix. I'd had to do a whole bunch in order to make it right for you all. If we'd had a full crowd here tonight, if I'd known we were going to have a small crowd tonight, we could have just done a little bit, but that's what I get for not watching the Weather Channel, isn't it? But we're going to go ahead and do this one. I have one made. I want to show you. This is the one I was telling you about that has 9 milligrams of sodium in it. Just a very little bit of salt. Okay, we did add just a little bit of salt to this, and I'll tell you why. Salt helps pull the juices out of the tomatoes and everything else that you have here in the corn. You can see in the bottom of the bowl the juice that has accumulated. This has been in the refrigerator probably for about 2 hours. If you can do it overnight, it helps the flavors to marry really well. It has the corn. It has 3 large tomatoes, and these were fresh tomatoes that I'd iced. Okay, we've got some right over here. And it's got fresh basil, a little bit of olive oil, some white vinegar, excuse me. And like I said, just a little bit of salt and pepper for taste and to help pull the juices out of that. So after this marries, you can see it looks really good. Anybody here have allergies to raw onions? I wouldn't recommend that you eat this. A lot of people do. They get really bad headaches and stuff. I'm going to leave this right here for you all to see, and then we'll move it back to our table. I went ahead and made that one in order that the flavors might marry a little bit while we're doing our other stuff and be able to have a good flavor on that. You can see our onions are starting to cook up a little bit here, and we'll give that just a little bit more. But while we're waiting on that to happen, we will start with this corn salad I'm going to do for you next. Is not as low in sodium. This one here is going to have about 22 grams or milligrams, excuse me, of sodium per serving, which still is not a lot. You're looking at about 3% of your daily allowance of sodium in this. So, and you can make it lower sodium by adding less dressing. We're going to actually use a low sodium or lower sodium Italian dressing in this one I'm going to make for you now. You're going to start with either frozen corn like what we're using today. You could use canned corn, but I wouldn't recommend it because most of the canned green beans and corn and stuff have that flavor that you know it's been canned. Okay, you can use fresh. That is the absolute ideal, most best way to go probably is fresh. And you're going to take 6 ears if you use fresh, and you're going to cook it. You're going to shave it off the cob. And one thing I like to do is I like to scrape the cob, okay, because there's a lot of flavor. When you cut the kernels off, all you're doing is you're basically giving that cob a flat top. And all the flavor is down in there, so you can scrape it and get in there also. Then we're going to take 3 large tomatoes. And we're going to sprinkle this in. This is a cold salad. We're going to take a 1/4 cup of fresh basil. How many people use fresh herbs a lot? You grow your own herbs? Yeah. I grew a whole big old thing of basil and everything was coming up so pretty, and then the freeze happened the other day and I didn't know about it and I froze every bit of it. Another reason I should be watching the Weather Channel. One of the best ways that I've seen to do it is you can actually go ahead and cut it and freeze it. How do you freeze it? If you freeze it just like this, it'll work. Okay, it's going to turn colors on you if you do it like that. I take an ice cube tray, and I chiffonade it like what we're going to do here, which means basically it's a fancy word for cutting in thin strips. And after I've chiffonade it, I take and I put it in the ice trays, and I fill my ice trays up with water, and I freeze it in cubes. And then when I go to use it in soups or something, I just pull a cube out. It's got your basil in it, and I drop it in. It hasn't changed color because the oxygen has not touched it. Okay, you've got it sealed up in those little ice cubes, and when you drop it in, it's just like fresh herbs. That's the way I do it. I would love to say that was my original idea, but I think Emeril Lagasse or Alton Brown or one of those off the Food Channel taught me that. And so basically I'm going to roll this up like a cigar. How many people here has ever rolled a cigar? Me neither. Anybody ever smoked a cigar? Yeah, so you know what they look like. And then I'm just going to cut it in thin strips. This one didn't cut up like I wanted it to, but it's still working. Okay, I got a little bit of stem in there, and I'm just going to rip this up by hand here. Boy, basil smells really good, fresh basil. If you have to use dried basil, I will warn you of this. Do not use as much. Okay, fresh basil is not concentrated like the dried basil is, so the dried basil is going to be a lot stronger. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and incorporate my tomatoes and my basil and my corn together. I just like to turn the bowl and make sure everybody stays in for the party. No. I just diced them up. I just took a whole tomato and I diced it up. I actually use Roma tomatoes in these. Okay, and Roma tomatoes do not have as much juice and as much seed in them. They're firmer, they're easier to cut. You could use any kind of tomato. It called for 3 large tomatoes. I actually used about 4 of the Roma tomatoes because they're not quite as big in that, but that's a good question. So and then in the recipe it goes on, it talks about using the basil, using the olive oil, also using the white vinegar, the salt, and the pepper, and that's exactly what I've done here. Okay, so we've got this to test. I'm going to do something a little bit different with this. I'm going to stir my onion and tomato mixture up here just a little bit, and then garlic. I'm going to use a light Italian dressing. You can use as much or as little as you want to. Basically, the way I tell is I cover the top of it, and see, I've already used, so I say, why not? How much you think's in this?
Is it low?
It's lower, but it's still not low. But the thing is, you're distributing it throughout all of this, so you're not going to be eating a whole lot of it. Most of your dressing, probably in all actuality, when you all get done with this, if it's empty, it's going to be at the bottom of the bowl. Because when you pick this up, look, see, all of it comes off of it just about. So you're having the flavor from it. Okay. So what we've done is we've added this in here, but there's one thing that we did not add in here. Anybody want to tell me what it is? No, don't call for pepper. We could put some peppers in there. Our onions, okay? And we already established that everybody here, does everybody here like onions? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put our onions in, and we're going to mix them in. Now you can see this is a little bit of a looser salad than what we did over here. Okay, the reason being is we used the Italian dressing. It still is not a high sodium. You're using fresh ingredients. The corn's frozen fresh, but it's fresher than what your canned and everything would be. And you're mixing everything up and you're incorporating it. And this right here, you don't have to let sit as long because you're using the dressing. Now it helps to let it sit, but you do not have to let it sit overnight or anything. And that's why I want to do this one in front of you so we could sample it also. And at the very end, I like to put a little bit of pepper in it. I'm not going to put the salt in this simply because you've already got the sodium that's in the dressing, which is going to give you the saltiness from it. And I'm not going to add the salt in it also because you don't have to render the juices out like what we did in this to have a little bit of liquid. So there's really no need for the salt. That's what's helping lower your sodium a little bit more, even though you're adding the dressing in there. So for this one, I would do it this way. It's olive oil and white vinegar. It's like what your recipe says, yeah. If I wasn't using the salad dressing, that's the way I would go. We're almost there with our fish. So is there any questions about this? Can you think of anything else you would use to impart flavor? You know what I'm going to say. What am I going to say? Nope. Crushed red peppers, habaneros, jalapenos. You know, anybody here with me? Anybody here? Nobody here's with me? Green peppers would be good in there. We could actually dice up some peppers and put in there if you want to try that too.
How much roasted corn
About a pound. This that I'm using here, I made a little extra because it's actually 2 pounds we're using in this. We can cut up some. These orange ones are really habaneros. I just made them look like bell peppers. So no, I'm kidding. Add a little bit of pepper in there. You could add, if you like cilantro, you could add a little bit of cilantro in here. Add you a little bit of lime juice in with the cilantro would make it really good. Without the Italian dressing, you could do it this way, and instead of using basil, use cilantro and add lime with it. Be really good with a grilled chicken. If you're serving grilled chicken and have that with cilantro and lime, it's really good. So there is our second dish that we're going to do. All of this, like I said, again, is low sodium.